Hello, History 701 students. My name is Ronald Piccirilli, and I'm here to discuss my three scholarly articles about the 1940 Fall of France. These three scholarly articles were excellent because they really drilled down and got to the heart of the causes of the defeat of the French and British armies in 1940. The first article was by Peter Jackson, and it's titled Returning to the Fall of France, Recent Work on the Causes and Consequences of the Strange Defeat of 1940. Jackson discusses another Jackson, Julian Jackson's two books about the fall of France. And one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that the German victory in 1940 was certainly not something that was preordained. The Germans, of course, used their Panzer tank forces in a different way, but the French tanks were certainly better armed and better armored than the German tanks. Also, one might say, well, the Nazis just had a lot more trained forces. And that isn't true at all. Combined with the British Expeditionary Force and the Belgian forces, the French army had just as many forces as the German army did. So what one really has to look at is in Jackson's article, he discusses things that were at the high command level, such as the methodical battle, where the French high command believed that they had to pre-plan everything in advance, as one of their military scholars frequently discussed, and his name was Jean Monnet, and I've discussed him in a different video. The French High Command also believed that they should have what was called a continuous front. There should not be any gaps or breaks in it. What some of the things that Jackson did discuss is that when the Germans pushed mobile war upon the French, they had to follow suit with what the Germans had done. And when they did this, they didn't have any really backup plans. And that was a major problem, of course, in the high command. Another of my articles was by Martin Alexander, and Martin Alexander wrote The Fall of France in 1940. And Martin Alexander discusses that in certain circles there's the idea that the French society was kind of corrupt and they didn't want to fight. They were kind of morally decadent. And that's really not true at all. You can't look at a society and say they're morally decadent, and this one is better because they're more different mind or something like that. And he rejects the moral decay and the moral decadence argument. The last article that I read was by Eugenia Kiesling, and it's The Fall of France: Lessons of the 1940 Campaign. Now, Eugenia Kiesling is certainly an expert on military history, and she has done many lectures on the 1940 campaign, and she gives various takeaways from it, such as that an army has to certainly look at their military intelligence and really believe what's being told to them through their military intelligence agents. And that's one thing that the French High Command didn't want to do, even though they were kind of warned what the Germans had on the other side of the Rhine River. They didn't believe it. Another thing is that when Eugenia Kiesling discusses takeaways from the 1940 campaign, she says that the French High Command was certainly expecting a long war. And as we see in World War II from 1939 to 1945, it was a long war. It just when it hit the French so hard and so fast with Blitzkrieg, they didn't really they weren't able to respond quickly enough to stop things from happening because they were expecting a much longer campaign than 6 weeks. Also, Eugenia Kiesling does discuss that when countries are there and they're thinking about who their enemies might be in the future, they certainly have to have kind of strong allies. And in the mid 1930s, the French did not have strong allies. They had some minor countries like Czechoslovakia and Poland and Romania, and those were not very strong allies, like a major power like England backing them or the United States backing them. So those are my three scholarly articles, and they really drill down into the fall of France in 1940. Thank you for your attention.